Welcome to Nature is a Great Game Station. My name is Sarah Coles, and I'm the Executive Director of Texas Children and Nature Network. We're excited to have you with us today. We are recording our session. Thank you for joining us. To save bandwidth for all of our attendees and for a clean recording, we ask everyone to turn off their cameras and mute themselves during the presentation. I'll be monitoring the chat so you can share your questions there, and I'll share them with our presenter. Please remember to keep your comments in the chat kind. Melody Alcazar is running tech for us today. Thank you, Melody. As I said, we're recording the session and I'll share it in a follow-up email. If you're uncomfortable with your name showing, you can change your name to anonymous and then private message Melody with your name for the attendance. Also, if your Zoom name doesn't match the name you registered with, please change your name using the little 3 dots next to your name or let Melody know. If we don't have your name and you need a certificate, we won't be able to give you a certificate. And if you need a certificate, just follow the directions that were in the email that was also contained this Zoom link. I'm going to go ahead and do our land acknowledgement. Texas Children and Nature Network is headquartered in Austin, and as such, I'm on the ancestral and unceded land of the Tonkawa, Comanche, and Sana people. Our ongoing colonial presence on Indigenous lands compels us to take action now to counteract the effects of colonization. The work we do through the Texas Children and Nature Network is one small step towards that effort. And in just a minute, I'm going to put some links about land acknowledgements and those people groups in the chat. And now I'd like to welcome our speaker today. Monica Lopez Magee is with the Children and Nature Network. Thank you so much for joining us today, and take it away.
Yeah, absolutely, Sarah. Good to be here with you all, and thanks for having me. Once again, Monica Lopez Magee. I go by she, her pronouns, and I'm based in Austin, Texas, but I'm with the national organization Children and Nature Network. I've been there for 9.5 years, and I serve as our Chief Programs Research and Policy Officer. And so I will say that I'm joining you with that background, but really with the heart, with one as a parent today. You'll hear I'm going to shamelessly plug some of my parenting experience, but also as someone who led prior to this role, led oh my gosh, scared to say how long, maybe 15 years of outdoor education, environmental education, and every form of that takes place, nature-based education. And what I'm going to share with you today is my personal journey on this and the resources that have been developed around it, in drawing on my personal experience, drawing on conversations with educators throughout the nation, organizations who are leading programming, and what came to be. And so I'm going to do a quick screen share. Here we go. And so some of you might have been a little bit puzzled by the title of this, but focusing on gaming, right? And I'll share that, one of my first roles at the Children and Nature Network was to craft a curriculum focused on an environmentally focused curriculum. And I had this sinking feeling. I was like, oh my God, because what the world needs is another curriculum around environmental education. Having worked in the space, I was like, there's watershed curriculums, water quality, trees, outdoor. I mean, there's entire books written on sticks. I was like, how am I going to create a curriculum? And really recognizing that I didn't want to duplicate what existed. And so I just took a long, hard look at what draws kids' attention. And what came to mind was, this is a statistic on teenagers, but there's lots of correlation with younger youth too, that children game, and we see it, right? There's the Anxious Generation, an entire book from Jonathan Haidt, naming the addiction that we are seeing, the screen usage. And there's an instinct to want to push against this. But what I'm going to invite us to do is let's look at what's happening here and how we draw the biggest strengths into the work that we do that is nature-based. So quick statistics. Oftentimes people think, oh, gaming, electronics, that is a boy's field. But the reality is that the statistics show that 75% of girls are gaming too, right? There's a statistic that 41% of teen gamers play video games at least once daily. That feels alarming? It should be, but we want to also recognize this and own this. 72% of teens play video games, they say, to spend time with others, right? And the irony of that, we can let that sink in, right? Um, and the daily engagement is high, right? We've all seen numbers on how much time children are spending on this. But that really, this is about industry growth, right? If that industry is growing, they're in turn putting those dollars back in the system to peak and reach the interest of children. And so then as a community, how do we say, well, what's working here? How can we duplicate it? So I'm going to invite us. These are some of the most common games, and I looked it up. It's this chart is around teens, but it is also that Roblox leads with 380 million active users. Whoa, Fortnite with 650 millions, and that many youth are like they're using all the platforms that they switch back and forth. So I'm going to invite us here today to first stop and say, if gaming is so successful, think of these top games. Some of you may be familiar with, and if you're not, you can kind of uh, call on your experience or knowledge having seen some of the other games. I'm going to invite us to drop in the chat, like, what is it we think about that these games are providing that is so appealing? We could even use the word addictive, right? So appealing and addictive for youth. And Sarah, let me see if I can, I don't know if I can put my screen so I can see the chat because I want it to narrate, like see what's showing up, if anything. Or do we
No,
have the chat ability?
we do have the chat ability. Nothing in the chat yet.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe I'll kick, or here we go. I think I do have the ability to see the chat. Yay.
We have Melody wrote immediate stimulus.
Yeah, for sure. Right? It's an instant gratification. There's a reward system built into these. That's something we're going to touch on in just a minute. What I would say these games do really well is they build curiosity. They're not actually fully developed. When you go into these gaming system, you're helping to build the world. Like there's a curiosity that's innately built into these games because it is not all like they are the user, the participant is the driver of the game, right? And how many of us with the best intentions have created a curriculum and then we are doing all the facilitation, right? Um, yeah, multiplayer, right? So them interacting with each other. Competition for sure. Youth, like children, even adults, right? What are our motivations? They can be intrinsic motivators and they can be external motivators. Competition being one, an escape. Yeah, most definitely, right? It's an entire world. It's not reality. It is there. It isn't scripted, right? It's being created as they go. All these things show up 100%. And so how do we take all of those elements that really varied intensities, yes, pure collecting, right, different modalities. We might say that we're leading programming that's hands-on, that's exploratory, right? We're going to go into different modalities. And so what showed up for me, going back to like how I started this thinking, was that I was tasked with producing this curriculum. And I was sitting with it, not quite sure what to do. And I had this moment as a parent. So, our lives are woven in, and I'm shamelessly, this is my son Max. He's much older than this now. I'll get to that in a minute. But we were out and we had this moment as a parent where on the weekend we had loaded up a backpack. I had loaded up with water, snacks, sunscreen, a book, everything I envisioned about Max and I's all day outing and how we were going to relax under a tree after our walk, our 5 mile walk or something of that. And he was about 6 years old at the time. And like literally the car was still in sight when Max said, "Are we done yet? How far are we going? I'm tired." And my heart just sank. And perhaps because I had been watching him fully bought in on the gaming. And he's 6 years old. I totally admit my kid was gaming more time than I'd like to admit at this time. But I totally leaned into that. I said, Max, we can't stop now. And I was determined we were going to turn around. And I said, but how do we know if those birds are friendly or if they're messengers or if they're trying to decoy us? He looked up at me with like just utter like intensity. I'm not sure, but we've got to, let's go find out. He goes, and he responded with like, I think, and he had a whole like, well, mom, they're dragons and they're going to slay the like the ogres on the other side of the creek. And I was like, oh my gosh, well, we need something to protect us. And he's declared the smallest of twigs, kind of like in this picture, a wand that could cast a spell to the birds to keep them from flying into some direction. I don't know. Sometimes I couldn't even follow the storyline. But if he casts a spell, the to the birds, he was able to transfer their superpowers to his. It turns out those birds were friendly and they led us to the creek and we kept walking. And as we went, we would find things from nature and they were becoming part of our storyline. And I would watch him weave in things from his gaming and watch him weave in different activities from his day-to-day life, from our day-to-day life, right? And I saw his creative mind just explode. And I came to realize there was something more at play here, literally, right? It was about the play. And there's so much research on we're going to dive into this. Some of the different, oh, I'm going to actually go this way and then go back. That there's different kinds of play that we can tap into. And what I had maybe serendipitously or just like by accident ran into was this exploratory play, the use of imagination to create stories and scenarios, right? That he could explore, that could encourage him to do the problem solving that he was doing on Roblox, to like create some, create some different perspectives and narratives of what we were doing, to discover the properties of objects. We would see a cactus and he would say, oh, I'm going to collect the spines and that's going to be one of my weapons. It was like and it was fostering that curiosity. That's not the only type of play. Exploratory and dramatic are where I really leaned into, that I see the gaming community really owning. There's solitary play that we see out, right? Where children sometimes need just time to be in solace, to be in their own space. There's constructive play, the physical play, the importance of movement, both gross motor skills with large muscles, leaping and jumping and climbing, and fine motor skills where they're manipulating and touching and holding things, right? And then there's locomotor play, right? Where they're kind of discovering movement in themselves. There's so many other types of plays. There's expressive play, restorative play. And so I invite it like to recognize all these forms of play. And I won't spend too long on this, but I'll say that we probably imagine many of the folks in this room, our virtual room, know the benefits that play brings. That play helps us navigate the world, right? Where children lead their own adventures, to more guided play where adults subtly, like where we create the structure. We've learned that the importance of play is especially critical in those early years, where they're building those cognitive skills to help them adapt and explore. And so some of the benefits named here, right? That play can accommodate different age and abilities. If you've as a parent, as an educator, as a practitioner, you see this, right? That good quality play sustains children's interest. That there's links between the play and the learning. That even if we're coming with an agenda, a learning agenda, that we have to include the play to maximize the learning. That it promotes cooperation and negotiation. If you've ever done, I remember my son during COVID, he came to me crying one day. He's like, I've been kicked out of the game temporarily, like the game master, which is his close friend, like didn't lie. Like there was some, he goes, I got robbed. He goes, and I told them they needed to give me my stuff back, and they thought I was being impossible, and now I've been kicked out of the game. He had to go back and negotiate with them, right? That it offers a variety of options that appeal to a wide range of play interest. These are the benefits, the good things that this is listed as green schoolyards, but this shows up in all of play. And when I think of the value of this and we go back to the gaming, if we're being honest, those games meet these needs and fulfill these benefits. Am I a champion for online gaming? Absolutely not. A wholehearted committed to getting kids outdoors. But we need to like lean into this and recognize those benefits, right? And recognize the success that is occurring and how we can lean into that. So all to say, I was still tasked with this job to create a curriculum. And I said, there's something here with my experience with Max, with what I'm seeing with gaming, there's something here that we can build on. And out came this game, Nature Quest. And I'll drop the link in a little bit. I know Sarah's so good about following up with materials. We'll drop the link to it's on the Children Nature Network. It has all the resources that I'm about to describe. But what I lean into is this adventure is based on dramatic and imaginative play, but it uses nature as our game board, right? Because we know that nature can amplify all those benefits that we were just talking about. Focus is on dramatic, imaginative construction and that constructive and that physical play, right? So what is it? It's a multidimensional adventure in nature while giving children tools for self-guided exploration and learning and empowering parents. It could be empowering educators, practitioners with a storyline to sustain play. It's structured, but it is not determined, is maybe the way that I would name it. So what does it consist of? Consist of 10 activities. I'm not here as a promotional. If anything, I would say if the resource online is helpful for you, great. If not, like hone in on how you can use exploratory imaginative play to create storylines that let children guide, let children build curiosity, all those qualities that we named around types of play, around what is showing up in those online games. But what we're talking about here, it's a framework, it's 10 activities. Timing each activity maybe I mean, I maybe as an educator, like I can stretch anything into an hour or 2 hours. We could play for play is somewhat indefinite, but it can also be within a 20 to 30 minutes. And plus some unstructured time that exists in them. So how does it work? The guiding principles are, and I would also say that the value of this type of structure, or what I hope is this type of structured play and this type of gaming, is you don't need to know the name of that bird. You don't need to know the name of that tree. You can use you can create the curiosity so that you can follow up. And certainly if that is part of your learning objectives, to follow up and build that. This is a space to build the curiosity so you can follow up to provide that information or to invite the student, the child, the youth to go and discover it for themselves, right? So for me, it's about there's no prior experience necessary. Nobody has to think of themselves as a subject matter expert. Little to no supplies. It can really be anywhere and everywhere. My son and I have ventured on this. I'll share a little more around our walks from our house to our park. It's an urban area. And those storylines that we had on that hike, we have it. I mean, he's 17 and sometimes we still do it. Like, oh, mom, look, like right now, the trees they're winterized, right? And he's like, oh, their claws just coming out. And we just it's just a modality that we operate in now, right? And I would say that you're the lead and you being whoever is the participants, right? All right. So each activity includes a mission that just sets the stage for the quest. Think of the mission as the creative prompt, right? A quest. That quest is like a typical lesson plan. It's just a series of activities and challenges that you can do. It includes some activation cards for like helping to explore and understand things, right? Some of that learning aspect that we talked about. So this might be a lot. So this is each activity, but here's what I believe is the gold. Earlier, I heard you say that it creates competition. It's like incentivized. I've named kind of that we want to build like that how can we mirror some of that escape? I'm trying to look at some of the notes before, right? That we named immediate stimulus. So what is built into this particular activity model is that you have a power card. So what does that mean? And we're always, you remember, nature is our game board. So you get powers by intentionally like doing some kind of special action, right? Or by seeing something that you can adopt a power. So I spy a bird. I'm going to assume the power of flight. I spy a lizard, and I'm going to assume the power of camouflaging, right? So we're blending that creative with the learning, with the idea that the superpowers that are embedded in the gaming. The toolkit that's online, it includes a player card so that youth could track their youth or the parents. I've done this with parents too on outings. They can track their power or their fuel levels. But I'll tell you one thing, I've played with kids and they never forget their fuel levels and they never forget their power levels. That is very stuck with them. um, and so fuel levels are a little bit about habitat, right? It's this recognition that they are a player as they're hiking, as they're doing the different activities, that they are always a player and they have to be tending to themselves. You see this in the gaming world. Like, what is their fuel level? So to stay hydrated, like you have a goal to stay hydrated and nourished at all times. This means when you're outdoors searching for water sources big like that could be a creek, that could be a puddle, right? That could be a plant that stores water. We have quote unquote collected water from a cactus. Are we cutting that cactus and peeling it and squeezing it out for the water? No. We're simply using our imaginations to hold that cactus is a storage for water. And by being out there, we're able to transfer it, right? And seeking food, and then we seek food, like where can we get some fruits, some nuts on trees? And it just invites this already, it's just the undercurrent of everything else that's happening, right? It is not and I would say for me, I'm about to share more with you about the different activities, but I'd go so far as to say if you set this up, if you choose to kind of adopt components of this, if you introduce these two elements alone, you would have a like a premise for any other activity you do at any time, and you just keep it running in the background. I'm gonna pause for a minute. I've been talking for a long time. I'm gonna invite us in chat just to say like how we're just gonna pretend we're a player for a moment. And wherever you're at in your office, you can look outside or you can look around you for whatever elements you can find and what might be a power that you can adopt. This is a treasure. Think of powers as treasures, special actions, uh, where that stick turns into the wand or the sword, or for the berries are now a potion. Powers mimic the items in nature. You might have a shell on your desk. Are you adopting a protective shell? I'm going to invite us to share a power we would adopt from our immediate area. Anyone finding anything in their space? I'll look around mine. Let me see. Yeah, so Sarah's naming, she has a live oak outside of her window, so she has the power to grow. Ooh, Nicole, the power of flexibility with the branches blowing. Hazel, from those rocks, what might be a characteristic or a trait you would take from the rocks? The sturdiness, the hardness, maybe? Melody's naming, she has a spiny aloe in her office. Ward off predators. She can use those spines as a protection. Hazel's going to take the strength from the rock. Oh, Rebecca, I'm going to catch those squirrels hanging upside down to get, oh yeah, soup and feeder. So power of a special tool in hand. I love it. May, a lizard with the power of invisible. So you can start to see how that shows up, right? And then for fuel, and invite us to do the same. What might you adopt as a fuel from something around you? And this is where, once again, when so each of these components in the activity is introduced one at a time, uh, and it becomes an activity, right? Fuel is your habitat. What's part of your habitat? Absolutely, Sarah, that latte counts, right? It is fuel. And it's not only any kind of fuel, it's like you can be like, oh, this is my super powered uh activation fuel so that I'm on high alert. And that's how we would take something simple like that and just elevate it. And the goal is simply to keep spurring that imagination. Melanie, I appreciate your vulnerability in sharing that you ate an entire bar of chocolate, right? So that you not only got the fuel, but maybe that chocolate is, and this is where we might say, is that chocolate a regular chocolate or is it a chocolate that gives you a power, right? That the fuel and the power can be linked. Me, some native plants, right? That they're feeding, right? When those spiced tea, a power push, and I love it. That's what we want. That's what we're trying to spur. Those yopon berries, you're taking in that fuel, but maybe it's also a potion to give you full relaxation. Oh, wouldn't that be nice, right? Special, yes, special leaves on dandelions for extra energy. You have the idea. And so you start to get the idea that with this model or structure underlying that you can build off of you can keep this running in the background, if you will, of the activities that I'm describing or of any activities that you're doing. And so what shows up then with the game? So this may be, sorry, now I'm taking a step back not step back, but I'm kind of doing a sideways. So when I was developing this, I was told, well, but Monica, we need to be aligned with curriculum standards. We need, we have all these objectives. I don't know if, uh, you know, a, a, a gaming or a curriculum, if you will, on gaming, on like Nature Quest, on nature as gaming, is going to fulfill that. And I said, huh. And really, what I did was I collaborated closely with educators. I brought together over 20 educators and parents to develop this portion of it. And I said, help me look at what we're creating and say what is meaningful, what other components does it need if I want to build this type of storyline. And what we discovered when we went through and as we built it is that it's life skills, that we're meeting life skills. We're creating space for physical, social, and emotional benefits through play. We have to work cooperatively. Sometimes we're working on our own to collect those fuel and the power. And once again, you can build it as you go. Sometimes it's, well, I would do it as where our whole group, right, is like if someone falls below, then we all lose power to move, right? And we see that, right? Someone's like, I want to stop. Like they're out of fuel. Okay, let's go searching for fuel. So it's collaborative. And it's spurring them to problem solve, right? To like say, oh, if I am low on fuel or if I am low on power, it's like, how do I go find this? How do I explore? Through observation, the science learning, observation, exploration, inquisition, right? To discovered understanding. And then I think in terms of environmental ethos, that we're questioning and analyzing like our knowledge of how the environment works. And so I once had my son, and mind you, I was an outdoor educator, so we spent a lot of time outdoors recognizing the plants and things like that. And he once spotted a Turk's cap, and he said, "Well, do I get to count the flowers as my fuel for eating?" I'm like, "Well, it's not flowering right now." And he said, "But it's going to." And so recognizing that process and those systems and building that and addressing that like that environmental learning and ethos that comes with that. And so if you end up digging into the online space, you'll see that there's all kinds of links to how this is correlated to 21st century life skills, how it's correlated to the national science learning standards. And those were, I will maybe put a qualifier on those. Those were done maybe like 6 years ago. So I don't claim that they're up to date, but that they were done. And you can see the premise of them. Okay. All right. So there we go. Um, I'm gonna, all right. So yeah, so we're gonna dig in more. Uh, this is about harnessing our love of gaming, right? To increase our love of nature. As long as we're in nature, we're together and exploring, and the potential is really endless. Let's see what comes next. Oh, so sorry, I'm a little bit, we're describing the different activities. So the first activity is introducing those two components I just shared with you. The treasure chest, that we want to start thinking of treasures and those powers, right? That we're inventorying elements found in nature is part of the mission. And then our role is to then go collect and identify those loose parts along with their function. The fuels, right? That's that habitat I spoke about. There's a game that's playing hot cold to help connect to sources of fuel. They go identify a source of fuel and then they play hot cold. The activities portion is pretty like I'd say in a intentionally use like very basic simple games that sometimes people know, like hot cold, or you'll see on the next one where it says power up, like we use the game of freeze to observe adaptations. And so it's intentionally designed to lean into like the simplest of games where the mission and that creativity is the focus. It keeps going around. As I mentioned, there's 10 activities. So home base is about observing characteristics of animals. Um, as you proceed, you must fuel up for survival. Just as you're feeling strong, you encounter nature's brew. It's like, congratulations, you've leveled up and are ready for a head-to-head encounter with predators and prey, right? And you use rock, paper, scissors to kind of talk about movement through trophic levels. And then you've been through these different challenges onward to collect nature's treasures. We visit treasures several times, and that's about looking at patterns in nature. And we discover the power in pairs. So we're looking at cooperative relationships in nature and how then we can adopt some of those. And then finally, to level up, right? We see that in so many games. We encounter a portal to consider the effects of humans on the natural environment. We want to touch on that ethos. And then they almost have to pay up with some of their treasures that they've earned throughout the other activities. It doesn't need to be followed in order. It's done in sequence, but it can be revisited over and over in different formats, any activity. Finally, before completing the missions, everybody faces the biggest quest yet. So everybody has to gather their people power, once again, about working together, and they plan their service project. I think this is a really key piece in terms of scaffolding. And if I'm being fully transparent, like it was an objective we had in the curriculum that we wanted to create, right? But that we were able to build this in throughout. So I kind of did a full glance of the curriculum, but I wanted to just give you a sample of one of the missions and how the missions are about setting up that creative piece. Welcome to nature in your first mission. Nature possesses many treasures. What's a treasure? A treasure is anything you decide is a treasure. Shells, seeds, stones, feathers, leaves. maybe flower petals, barks, nature's treasures are they're all around us, right? We just did it. We just looked at what's around us. And in this particular quest, you will take inventory of what is your surroundings and the roles treasures play in nature. You're going to imagine how the treasures you find can be in your nature quest adventures. We've talked about the stick as a sword, berries are potions, leaves help to make a crown, or rocks blast open portals. Remember, there's no need to keep treasures. We want to leave we're focusing on leaving a no print. This is about collection. The splendor is in finding them. Oftentimes, harkening back to the gaming aspect of this, kids are familiar with that. They don't need to take the treasure. Oftentimes in those games, they kind of click on something and it goes into like a treasure bag, or like a treasure chest, or depending on the game, like their own like kind of player profile, right? So there's all kinds of different ways to create that. And then the activity for this particular one is designed where you collect the treasures and then you put like a cloth over it. And we start to figure out if we can identify, who found what, and then they share out what's the name of the treasure, who do we believe found this treasure, did anyone else spot this, right? It's also building that attention, that alertness of like, did anybody else spot this? How might the treasure be useful? This is one of the activities. I certainly don't want to take you through all 10 online. My hope is to give you a flavor of it, to invite you to, sorry, maybe I did include another one. I didn't mean to. And then on the treasure one, then we introduce that power and getting to hold it. So it's really to give you a sampling of what shows up. I think for me, it's about building in storylines. Like my son and I, we've carried our storylines from while waiting for the bus. We've used them on road trips when we're in the car, like what we see around us, the changing landscapes. Our outdoor experiences have morphed as much to the environment surrounding us as they have to like his evolution in the video games. The more that he's gamed, he's 17 now. Certainly doesn't look like this, but this is where we did complete that hike that I was telling you about earlier when he looked back at the car. We did complete it. He was unfazed and it was over 5 miles. But the games have morphed over the years to his creativity, the experiences he has in the gaming world, and on several hikes. And this was 3 years ago. So when people say like, oh, I don't know what age, like he was 14 and we went on a hike and he introduced his friends to this. That was 4 other 14-year-olds. And so I think it can carry the test of ages. His tracking of the powers and fuels just became enormous. Although he ran with it, he adopted every superpower imaginable. We've dodged, and in our years, we've dodged icebergs during our once in 10-year snowstorm in Texas a few years ago. We dodged icebergs was the term we used. We traversed raging waters, which was like small creek passages. We claimed a cave, which was at a bus stop bench. And so many battles. We collected metals and gems and fuels. We had our whole fat that our biggest reward is, and I would say that, it's created time together. That we're no longer like, what's the distance? But like, it's about us being in that journey and in that headspace. One of the things that happens as adults, when we first started doing this, I'd often find myself fatigued at the end of the hike. My husband would be with us and he'd come out of the 5-mile hike and be like, that was a blast. And I 100% agree. That was a blast. And I would come out tired. I was working my brain to keep up with him. Kids' imaginations are so powerful. And I had to it wasn't a muscle exercise for me. And so, all to say, I had to build that muscle. It was like sometimes I'd be like, are we still going on this? But I realized like as long as we're in nature together, we could keep exploring and creating like endless stories. Um, and so I'm a little bit ahead on time. I just wanted to give a moment to say, this is my journey, this is the curriculum, and I invite you, that the adventure is elevated to any power level, to what you believe. And how I hold it is that, what shows up for you in your curriculums. And so maybe my next question that I have for you all is, as you think of the programming, for those of you who lead programming, or maybe it's not even programming or initiatives you lead, where can playing, particularly imaginary play, exploratory play, show up? So maybe I'll start with just saying in the chat, like if you could see a role, if the role of exploratory or imaginative play feels intuitive, and if so, if you can think of a quick example. And that could be, Melody, I'm going to plug for you as you're working with folks to design spaces, right? Like, what are some of the prompts that can be included in those infrastructures so that kids can play, right? And use their imaginations. We saw in the first, I'm gonna take down the slide so I can see you all better. So I'm gonna invite us just to have a moment to say what feels doable for you, or if you have any questions on what feels really challenging for a possible integration of some of these components. And we can go anywhere from like integration of just imaginative exploratory play to integration of like this particular structure in Nature Quest. Like what feels doable, what feels really like, how would I do this? I was an educator for a long time, so my wait time discipline is really good. I'd like to believe. Yeah, feel free to come off mute if there's, it's kind of a hard thing to put in the chat. Feel free to come off mute. I'd love to hear what feels doable for you, what questions you have. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of think Melody, because I was thinking about loose parts, because we're when you're setting up a loose parts area, you're just kind of leaving it, and then you're depending on engagement to not be while you were there necessarily. So how do we get kind of some prompts in front of people, either through signage or whatever, like so that parents are kind of engaging in that same way that Monica was throughout the story. So yeah, so story walk form, something like that. I kind of think of the choose your own adventure books and like how can you turn like a story walk into a choose your own adventure? Kay put she works at a botanical garden, so fueling for survival looks doable for them.
Yeah. Excellent, Kay. And Kay, I think of a botanical garden. You're like a wealth of things that people can think of for like fuel and power ups and things like that. If maybe to the likes of what Melody said with like some signage or a do it yourself, like just invite, like being able to encourage the parents to use that modality to engage their children as they explore. Yeah, Rebecca, that's great. Rebecca's naming, she can test it with her 11-year-old. Because we know they're all gaming, right? Or most of them, maybe not all of them, but statistically it's there. When, and when I'm often like, we're not going to let the gaming community win. We're going to make sure that we have activities and designs and structures that spur the same curiosity and exploration and social piece. Excellent. All right. I have
Monica,
one. Yeah, go ahead.
oh, I was just, this is unrelated to the prompt that you provided, but I was looking at the quest cards
Hmm.
online, and they almost look like they're meant to be like printed and hole punched, and like they're designed in that way.
Yeah.
Is this something that you have like hard copies of? Because I feel like years ago you guys had some small little cards.
I did. I'm trying to think where they're probably somewhere in box that I may have access, and if I do, I will get them to Sarah to maybe share out with folks who might be interested as a resource after. Um, so I know that we did print them. I know that I have them somewhere, and so I can commit to following up on that. And I'd also say that some of that it is designed to be printed, and some of it. It's kind of a what I have found is that it's really the reference point or the quote unquote, I mean, this sounds maybe negative and it's not my intention, like the crutch or the tool for the parents or the adult or the educator, because the kids don't lack in the ability to explore or name those items, is what my experience has been. But they are there as a prompt. Yeah, and I will definitely look at it to see if we have some kits left to send out to anybody who might be interested. May, would you would like to come off mute and maybe share really quickly your version?
Yes, hi, Monica. Thank you so much for the talk. It was really interesting. And so I work in bird conservation, and I was thinking through your talk. I think that's a great opportunity to engage students through play. So I was thinking to have the students to imagine to learn about what kind of threats the birds are facing in general, like cats or light pollution issues. And then in that activities, they can imagine they are birds and think creatively what kind of superpowers they would need to survive and to thrive from the threats they face in nature. So that's something that I have been thinking. So thank you. Monica, I think you are muted.
Oh, I am. Thank you. Is it May?
Mei
Mailing. Mailing, that's beautiful. I mean, I think my goal or my intention here is for us to recognize the power of that creativity and exploration. The curriculum, like the link to the curriculum is a tool, but certainly it's the premise and the underlying of it that is really key. That's great, the way you've already adapted it for what you would um, seek to engage the way you would engage students. Excellent. Well, with that, I want to thank you for coming. I committed to my colleague, Children in Nature Network. We have you have the link to the curriculum. Sarah just dropped a link to the evaluation, and I also want to name that Children in Nature Network has a Vitamin N challenge running through February 16th. And so it's, the Vitamin N challenge can be a way, there's all kinds of materials and resources there, but a way to also spur outdoor play and exploration.
Thank you so much, Monica. I can see so many applications for folks as they think through this. I've been with another organization in lots of conversations where some people are very insistent that there needs to be an app, and I think I'm going to come to them with be like, but what if we did this instead? And so thank you. I appreciate that. So thank you, everyone. As Monica said, please fill out our evaluation. And then also our next webinar is Leading Like Nature, Transformational Strategies for Productive, Purpose-Driven Teams. And thank you so much, everyone, and enjoy the day. Get outside. Maybe take an adventure on your own.
Yeah, for sure. Have a good day, everybody.